Hi, welcome back. We're ready to do round 5 of our Meadow Weaver quilt. This is the scalloped border, and I've got a couple of the blocks sewn together here to show you. So this is the block right here, just from there to there, and I've got 3 blocks here. These will be in the quilt right here in your outside border. See how that's going to go right there. And I call it a scallop border because it creates this kind of scalloped effect. I didn't know what else to name it since I invented it. I guess I can call it whatever I want, right? Okay, this is how we're going to make it. In order to make a block, here's the units that we're going to put together. And this gets a little complicated only because it's actually pretty simple sewing, but it only gets complicated on which fabric to use and what color, which way to press. So laying the pieces out, we've got, just put them the way they go. All right, those are the pieces that are going into the block. And this block involves diagonal seams, which we did last time in the wide basket block. We learned how to diagonal seam. So that's like doing a corner triangle, but without having that extra seam. So instead of having an extra seam right here, by putting a corner triangle on this little blue piece, we'd have 1 extra seam. So we would have increased our number of pieces, by 6 on each block, and there's a lot of blocks. So that saves us a little bit of time. And it looks really nice too, especially when we have a patterned background like we do in this houndstooth. We want to avoid as many seams as possible so that it can look more uniform. Okay, so the way this goes together is that you have, let me show you on the block that's done here. You have mirror images of each other. So we have a unit here and these units with the diagonal seam going this direction. On the opposite side, the diagonal seam's going up. The only thing that's a little complicated is on the left side, we use one print, on the right side, a different print. So we've got the mini print, the word print, and then we have the word print and the mini print and the word print. And this is all explained in your cutting directions, how many you need of each. But just make sure that you're kind of keeping track of, I would do all the same direction at once. So all of your seams that are the diagonal seam that goes this direction first. So when I pick up these pieces, I know I'm going to put them together like we did in the last round, perpendicular to each other, matching up that corner, and then we're going to sew across the corner from corner to corner. And remember, if you want to draw that line, you can, but if you want to just mark the point with a pencil, you can do that. I've got a pencil right here, so I can just lift this up and mark right there. That's the end of that block so that I know that's where my seam is going to go. I just like to start on this end, and I'll show you when we go to the machine. But I'm going to check it visually every time and practice flipping it open and make sure my seam is going the way I want. So I'm going to do all of the elements in the blocks that go that direction. So I'm going to take these pieces, these sets, these are my pairs, over to the machine, and then I will pick up a pair one at a time. And now I'm ready to sew these together. And you would think that you'd want to put this in the machine. That makes sense because our extra fabric's sticking out here on the left where we have more room. But because this is on top of this underneath rectangle and I can't see where that point is, I like to go from this side. So, but you can mark it or do whichever way is more comfortable for you. I'm going to drop my needle down into the fabric, and then remember I just lifted my top piece a little bit so that I can see that following corner, follow it into the machine. Then the next one I'm going to put together the same way. So I've got my blue piece going here. I know these are going the same direction, so I don't have to visually check them. As long as I've got them arranged the same way, and this one will be blue piece going this way, red piece going this way, perpendicular to one another, I can just feed these through the machine. They're set up in sets together. I'm just watching that right there, that following edge. There we go. Next one. And you can chain these together, and I would just set your pairs out, chain them all together. Do one first, make sure you've got it right, so you don't have to unpick everything if you made a little mistake. Okay. Now, And then I would take my whole chain over to my cutting mat, and all at once I would just cut off. I don't worry about them being in line because I can eyeball, especially these short pieces. Okay, so now these are trimmed and ready to press. And this is important because of the direction we press these makes them to come together here where we sew the blocks together, where the two blocks join, and also where the two sides join, the mirror image. That's important. So anything that has the blue word print on it, no matter which side it's on, you're going to press toward the blue word print. And anything that is the mini print, press toward the background, okay? Toward the background on the mini print, okay? So here we are at the iron word print. I'm pressing toward the word print, so open that up. And mini print, I'm pressing toward the background. So I'm going to start with my iron on the mini print. Okay, and I've got a little bit of rainbowing on this one, so I'm going to kind of straighten this one out a little bit. Okay, now those pieces are done. Let's just lay those out. And then you'll know the other side. I've done already this, the first one, and I'm going to do this one to show you that it's different than this side, in that we have to place the top piece in it differently so that it opens up, and you'll have the angle on this seam going this way. So just check it, just eyeball it as you're looking at it. That's the corner I've got to sew across. Make sure you sew across the correct corner and not this way. I've done that before. I think I told you that last time. And it has to be unpicked. There's no getting around that one, right? Okay. Okay, and this will finish the ones that have the diagonal seam going the other direction. So this is the mini print, so we're pressing toward the background. Nice and straight. Okay, now those are going to be seamed together. So I'll just pick them up and run over here and sew them together. These don't have any seams that have to match or meet each other. It's a great block that way because it looks complex and goes together great. Doesn't have any matching seams. Pick up my next piece. Of course, if I was doing multiple blocks, which you will be doing, you would chain these together in your machine. We don't have to stop and press in between because there's no seams that meet each other, so it's not critical to stop. I would probably sew sets of twos together and keep chaining those all the way, and then sew those twos to each other, that kind of thing. It just makes it a little quicker, but just for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do it this way so that you can see the whole block coming together. Just stick that underneath my presser foot. Now you're going to make, let's see, 8 on a side, so 32 of these blocks. So it's a good amount to make sure you're chaining. Now the first one that will actually nest together or have to meet, let me start by putting my needle in the one end and get it a couple stitches, and then I'm going to make sure I've got this in the right place. Do you see down here, let me pull this up so you can see it. Down here we have, in fact I'll turn it this way. These seams that we press the opposite direction are going to nest together. Pull them nice and tight so that they'll match perfectly, and then I just hold that in place while I sew down to it. Remember, when I get a little ways away from something that has to match, that's where I stop and check it, make sure I've got it pulled nice and tight against each other. Okay, just 2 more to add, and these 2 don't have to match at all. I hope you're having a great time. I hope you're enjoying this process and learning something new. And I would love to hear from you if you used some of these techniques that you learned on another project. That's exciting to me, that if you learn something useful that can make your quilting life more fun and better for you, that's great. And of course, I would always love to see pictures and comments about your project that you finish. So make sure you follow me on social media and send me some pictures. I'm at jalilistudio.com is my website, and my Facebook is just Jalili Studio. And I'm on Instagram too, Jalili Studio once again. Seems to be a theme there, right? Okay, got my block sewn together. Look how great that looks. And these can be pressed any direction. So I'm going to just quickly kind of set that seam in first on each of these little seams, because I like to set the seam before I press it open. All right. Now I'm going to start on one end, put my iron on there, and then move the next block open, the next piece open. Move my way from right to left across the block as I'm pressing those seams open. Give it a nice shot of steam. Looks good. Okay. Great. Now, of course, I would check the size, and these should measure 7.5 tall by 6.5 wide, and that's exactly what we've got. It looks superb. That's ready to be sewn onto our block, our border. So we have already 3, and we just needed to make one more, and see how these seams are going to fit right nice against each other, just like they did in the center of the block. Sew this on. Oh my gosh, we're doing so good. We're almost done with the piecing. Then we get to the fun part. I can't wait to show you applique. You're just going to love it. Come on, machine, let me out. Oh, okay. All right. So that is our block, and I would press that seam. Well, I'll just do it. We might as well. We've got time, right? We've got all the time in the world. All right. There's our 4 blocks together, and then in our border, the next thing that happens, let me just show you up here. We've got 4 blocks of the scallop blocks, then the basket block, 4 more scallop blocks, and then in the corners, the block we made from the beginning, and I'll get to that in just a second. So here's let me put it up here so you can see it. There's our basket block, and then here's the rest of the border, 4 more blocks. Now you can see that these aren't quite done because they need a strip on the top here. This calls for a 2.5 inch wide by 20, what is these? These are 6 inches, so this is 24.5 inches long piece of the background, the red houndstooth, to be sewn on top here. I'm not going to show you that because it's very simple. You know how to do that. So you'll sew that on top, and that will make these pieces go together. They'll all be the same height, okay? Now let me pull this down here. You will make 2 borders this way with the scallop borders, the basket, and the scallop borders on the other side. 2 like that to sew onto your quilt, and then you'll have 2 that you add the outside borders to. So let me slide it over. The outside block, the corner blocks. So the corner block will go right here. You'll notice that it is also short, okay, compared to the center block. So you will also add 2.5 inch pieces around this block to make it the right height. Let's look up at the quilt. See this center block? Here it is. You made it when we made the in round 1, where we made all of these blocks, but it's not big enough, so it has to have that extra piece added on. So you've got it already made. It just has to have the extra piece sewn on, and then it'll be ready to sew into your outside border. So you'll have 2 borders that are longer that will go on the sides. So the 2 that are shorter on the top and bottom, then sew these on the sides, or vice versa. just so that you put the two short ones on first. And then you'll have your outside border put on, and you're ready to do the applique. So get busy and get that done, and come back for the next round where we'll learn how to do applique.